Hey folks, I want to bring you something that I think could really benefit the community, both raiders and builders alike. A lot of times when raiding maps, I'm sure we've seen it, a lot of traps are very straightforward in their placement. They're in the raider's path, the raider can back up and avoid them. Um, Sometimes we have overlapping lines of fire. Oftentimes we have large rooms filled with traps where we're just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at someone. Um, but I want to try to get at what I think is fun for this game and what I think a lot of other players will enjoy as well. Um, and that is trap combos. We aren't just throwing everything at a player and hoping that something sticks. We are thinking about what players will do, where they're going to move to and think is safe. We're going to trap those areas and we're going to lead them in the direction we want them. Additionally, we're going to be making use of angles and sightlines. We're going to be redirecting player vision based off of design, interior, possible trap locations that we telegraph on purpose. And overall, I think this leads to a really fun raider experience, as they're going to approach your base as a puzzle to be solved, as opposed to just something to race through and try to avoid traps in until they get your gen map. So anyways, what I'm talking about when I'm thinking combos is traps that interact with each other. There's a lot of different interactions. We have corrosive cubes, specifically the opaque mod, in order to conceal things that we don't want the player to see. This could be inner workings of our base. It could be a dead man's switch drop that's going to fall on them. It could be something that will allow projectiles to move through that the player will hopefully move into the path of. We have traps that can kill guards. This is important for Dead Man Switch. So in this case, we're looking at a Sentinel with the self-destruct mod. When it self-destructs, it will actually kill both of these guards here. There are other traps that will kill guards, basically almost all of them, once triggered. We have corrosive cubes and the spontaneous ejection mod now, which has some very interesting properties, which we will get into very shortly. And yeah, we're just looking for ways that these traps will interact with each other, and we're trying to make use of that to throw something unexpected at the player. So let's start with this combo here. I'll give you an idea of what it looks like for the player, and then I'll look at it from the outside and tell you what's going on. So the player will walk along this path here. We're making use of angled cubes. Before we can even see that bolt shot is firing, the player hears it, they move backwards, they hear this, we drop a guard in front of them, we drop a guard behind them, and they have very little time to react. Let's see what that looks like from over here. So bolt shot triggers this destroys, kills both of our guards, and we have two explosions covering a huge amount of space. It's very difficult for the player to react unless they're moving already to get back into this space when the bolt shot fires. Some players will, many players will not. This is going to catch a lot of players. And this is just a very simple interaction that doesn't require much setup. We're just using some angled blocks, making use of the fact that the self-destruct covers a half block radius all around it, which will cover the placement positions of any guards on those blocks, and just making use of narrow sightlines where our trap can trigger when it sees the player's feet prior to the player even having vision of it, and the other half of the trap just destroying one of our traps. This could be a hollow cube with Masquerade, for instance, or in our case, just a Sentinel. This trap also makes use of this guard here. If the player rushes past, maybe destroys this bolt shot before it fires, this will be firing on them from behind, as well as this guard. If we keep them moving in a downward slant, we can send them shots over their shoulder. One simple setup could be getting a lot of kills. It's a lot of fun. Players will maybe die once or twice to this. They'll learn what's happening, and then they'll move back further, and we can throw other things at them back here if we wish to. But let's move on to something a little bit more advanced, something that's new with the recent patch, and that is the spontaneous mod on corrosive cubes. So something interesting is this mod has a trigger radius. It triggers for both players and for guards, which is really important because that's going to limit us with some of the things we can do with guards, but it can still open up possibilities, especially seeing as spontaneous can arc and travel a distance. So I'm going to activate the radius of the sentinel, which roughly correlates with the trap radius activation for corrosive cubes when it's offset by 1. So this is roughly the trigger range for this, where it will begin ejecting lava all over the place. We can see, if I go into test mode, alright, so it's not doing anything, it's just sitting here inert, hanging out. We move our guard forward a step, and there it goes. If we kill our guard, nope. There we go. Accuracy sucks. It stops firing. And then if we move on ourselves, there it goes. So for our horizontal and vertical axis, we've got about 7 blocks of range before it starts triggering. And for our diagonals, we have about 5, a little less, just because of the nature of spheres and the hypotenuse. Anyways, let's use this in a trap, and I have that set up right over here. What we're doing is we have, ooh, I almost forgot to explain a feature of this block. It will only eject lava out of sides that have an open face. So if we put cubes here and here, then it can only eject out of the top and front face. If we put everything here, then this is the only face that can send lava out of. And anytime it's queued up to trigger, this is the direction it will come from. So if you're trying to block off a specific area, having every face blocked off except for one will allow that to happen with greater frequency. Something to note, and this could be a bug, I'm not sure yet, but hollow cubes will also prevent this from firing if they are directly adjacent to the lava cube. Even when this is popped, it will continue to stop this from triggering. And that's the part that I don't know if it's a bug, maybe it'll get fixed in the future, but at the moment, this will not trigger. Guards won't trigger it, I can't trigger it. It's because this was a solid face at the time that the map was loaded, I presume. So let's look at how we can use this. The other thing that we should note, splatter doesn't break hollow cubes. The continuous mod will break hollow cubes, and that is amazing because that gives us proximity detonated hollow cubes, which is really cool. So here we are making use of the arcing nature. So when this triggers, it will trigger out of this face. We've blocked off all other sides. The shot will arc, and it's going to hit this hollow cube down here, masquerade. This guard, which we will place in, we want it to path and run into this lava cube in order to trigger Dead Man Switch. This is positioned just so that the guard is not within the trigger range of this corrosive cube. This is important because if the guard is in trigger range, then this will fire before the player's ever in range. Let's record our guard path and show you what's going to happen. I'm going to send the guard right on up this set of ramps and position it right here. Now for the player path, we want exactly one path that the player will come from to be within range of this lava cube. We don't want it firing early, so that's going to control how we place this in our builds. We can't just place it anywhere. We need to place it in a position that is protected from player reach until they're moving along this path. So that could be a large superstructure around it. It could be a cavern underground. But however you want to achieve that, just keep that large radius in mind when building these. So this isn't triggering. Player walks up this ramp, they get within range, walk down, and they reach this little hill here. It's dangerous, they have to block, have to back up. And we just dropped a dead man switch in behind them. Very little time to react, very little time to understand what's happening, and just a couple of traps here to prevent them from rushing forwards, keeping them in the kill range. Taking a look at what's happening from out here, we can just activate this. That fires, pops our cube, guard paths, goes in there, and falls through and dies. For your path to drop the guard, generally you want about 2 ramps, unless you're dropping a large vertical distance, in which case you can maybe just get away with 1 ramp. 2, the guard will be roughly middle of this block here when it explodes, covering quite a large range all around here. Yeah, so we've got some interesting traps to work with. We can do some really cool things with this feature. We don't necessarily have to be pathing guards either. We can be popping holocubes where there's a trap with sightline of the player. So if we had something like this, for instance, when the player gets within range of this cube, it will break a holocube. And let's see what our range is here. So say we send the player in a path along here, and they think they're safe. They can't see that there's a holocube at the end of the hallway. They don't think that they can trigger it. This is blocked so they can't see it. Suddenly we have a trap triggering in which they have not a lot of room to escape. We can do bombs triggering down this hallway, whatever you want. We can get creative. This is just a proximity detonated holocube with a trap facing down the player's path. If the player is not in the path, it's going to be a lot less deadly. They're suddenly going to see that and just be able to react to it. But if they're in the trigger range, in the path, that's when things can get fun. So, yeah, just thinking creatively, making traps interacting with each other in order to come up with some unexpected scenarios to throw at players. We can do a lot with it, and I'm going to be creating more videos in the future, demonstrating other techniques and traps and combos that I've come up with, and yeah, hope to see you all there, and I hope you guys find this content enjoyable and informative. So if you enjoy it, leave a thumbs up or just a comment, let me know, so I know that people want more of this. Anyways, have a great day, everybody.